Those Days with the Monsters, Part 39. Each step Kirrel took through the derelict clicked against the floor. His frills flared in annoyance. How was he supposed to move quietly with the caps on? All the humans were moving around busily, and every time he approached them they would stop what they were doing for a moment and look up. It made him feel awkward to approach them, and he ended up wandering around the station with very little to do until Alex wanted to fight with him again. At least he didn't get as sore now. "Hey kid." Kirrel's frills flared a bit, yellow pulsing nervously along the spines, as Alex's voice came from behind him. Was it time to fight again already?
"Hello, Alex."
He turned around to see her baring her teeth at him.
"It's time to fall over again?"
Well, maybe. Alex's mouth stretched, revealing more teeth. The whiteness against her deep brown skin emphasized the number of teeth. Kirrel found this expanded expression vaguely unsettling. "You're not dealing with me today."
"Who am I dealing with?"
That was a weird statement. Kirrel had been trying and failing to hit Alex for so long. He had no idea what would need someone else's help. "That'd be me. Hey, Squishy." Smee peeked around the corner with his teeth bared too. "Training wheels are off."
"Training what?"
That made no sense at all, and the translator's attempts to explain what a training wheel was weren't very helpful.
"What's that supposed to mean?"
Alex shook her head, the edges of her mouth pulled down, but Kirrel got the sense that it might be a pretense. "Shush, Jason, you'll confuse him." She started down the hall, his frills flaring and staining a deep fuchsia. Kirrel followed. He even forgot to be annoyed by the steady ticking of his claw caps. As they entered a room, Kirrel looked around and discovered that the equipment from Alex's room had all been moved here. A neat patch on the wall showed where the human crew had mended a breach. It was surprising how quickly the crew had found and repaired any breaches that could vent atmosphere from the vital parts of this derelict. Kirrel wondered briefly if they had experience taking over ruined stations or ships. But that was absurd. If they did, would they be flying around the edges of human space in a single ship? Clearly not.
"What are we doing?"
he asked again, hesitantly stepping onto the mat. Smee bared his teeth, stretched a bit, and then stood on the mat as well. "It's easy. Alex says you have the basics down, so she wants to see how you do in a proper fight, and apparently the weakest human on board is yours truly." Smee made a face that looked similar to Alex's shrug replacement expression. "So I guess we keep fighting until you beat me, and then we'll see what Alex wants to do." Alex bared her teeth and leaned against the wall. 3, 2, 1, go! Kirrel's frills flared, and he stepped back as Smee's hand flashed out towards him, faster than he expected. The hand whipped through the air an inch from Kirrel's chest, and pulled back quickly. Smee looked slightly surprised. "She wasn't kidding. You're quick." Had Alex said something to Smee about Kirrel's training? That was news to him. Kirrel held back for a moment, not sure what to do. "Get in there, kid," Alex called from the sidelines. "You don't get to be the second one to incapacitate the other. You're first or you're down. Stop being passive." Kirrel's frills flared up, orange and yellow vying for dominance on them.
"Does she understand?"
Smee's foot grazed Kirrel's hip.
"How hard it is to act when he's—"
Kirrel found himself tilting abruptly, Smee's hand on his shoulder pushing him downward as he pivoted over what appeared to be Smee's knee.
"Doing this?"
Ugh. Kirrel took a moment to process how he had ended up flat on the floor, Smee's knee digging into his back.
"That was fast."
"You didn't fight back, that's why." Alex moved over to Smee and whispered something to him. In response, he raised his knee. Kirrel saw Alex moving the leg slightly, pointing at Smee's other foot, and speaking quietly and quickly. Smee nodded and raised his knee a few times until Alex nodded and turned to Kirrel, who flinched. "Up." Alex's cold right hand gripped Kirrel's hand and tugged. He scrambled to his feet, breathing hard. Not bad for the first try. When you stepped back to avoid the first hit, you rotated your knee. That'll hurt you in the long term if you do that. Too much stress on the tendon. When you step back, do it like this. She demonstrated twice, then had Kirrel do it until she was satisfied.
Alex, do I really have to do it until I beat him?
Kirrel was already shaken. Fighting a Cuman, even one Alex said was weak, seemed impossible. He was so fast. How could Kirrel possibly keep up? That's a bare minimum.
But
this seemed unfair.
He's getting better too.
You'll improve together. It's not beating each other that counts as much as being able to beat other things. Like the Tizzicks. Kirrel's frills flushed purple with embarrassment. He'd forgotten. There was a real reason for this. It wasn't just to keep him busy. With a sinking feeling he realised that he might need this soon, and a sudden clarity settled on him. This might become all that stood between him and a messy, painful death. It felt as if something snapped into place. Was this how the Cumans went through life?
Oh, okay. I'll try.
Kirrel faced Smee on the mat again, and this time he moved fast. He still wound up on the mat, which wasn't a surprise, but this time Smee was breathing a little harder. Kirrel felt a rush of pride. He'd been beaten by a Cuman, but he'd made him work for it. Nice, Jason. Keep both your feet on the ground unless you need to move one. Kirrel, you pulled your punches with that tail whip. If you'd gotten his knees, you'd have won, so don't hold back. Over and over and over they fought, and by the time Alex told them they were done for the day, Kirrel was panting hard, and Smee was covered in sweat. Every step hurt, but Kirrel hardly felt it as he made his way to the derelict's dining area. He wanted to talk to Sleepy. In his first real set of fights, Smee had beaten him 24 times, but it didn't matter. There had been one moment, one shining moment, the 12th attempt, when Kirrel had found himself on his feet with Smee laid out on the mat. Alex had sounded proud, but not as proud as Kirrel. Smee might be the weakest on the ship, but he was still strong and fast, and Kirrel, it might be one victory out of 25, but it was a victory. His first victory. He hoped Sleepy would be proud of him. Thank you for listening to Those Days with the Monsters. Read by me, a good bean.